Good morning everyone. I welcome you all for another lecture on the course Microprocessors and Microcontrollers. In today's class, I am going to discuss about a concept, pin configuration of 80386. From last few classes, we discussed about the silent features of 80386 processor, and thereafter we discussed about the architecture of 80386. In this class, I am going to discuss about the concept that is the pin configuration of 80386. Generally, we know that the 80386, what I am going to discuss is, I am going to discuss about only 80386 DX. Because this is the full version of 80386 processor. So what I am going to discuss from last few classes or upcoming classes, I was only focusing on 80386 DX because that is only the full version processor in 80386. So if I consider that 80386 DX processor was available in 132 pin PGA package. PGA means pin grid array. Out of 132 pins, maximum pins are assigned for power supply. I repeat, this 80386 DX was available in 132 pin PGA package. Out of 132 pins, maximum pins are power supply signals. And we know that we have another variety of or another version of 80386, which is 80386SX. This 80386SX processor was available in 100 pin flat package. That we know that, guys. But now I was focusing on this 80386. And this is the pin configuration of 80386. What are the signals here I have? Those I was divided into different groups. Like the 32-bit address bus cycle definition signals, as well as coprocessor signaling signals, power connection signals, interrupt related signals, bus arbitration related signals, bus control signals, data bus signals, as well as the clocking signal. Now I am going to discuss these signals one by one. So first one is the address lines. We know that 80386 processor has total 32 address lines. That is from A31 to A0. These are the dedicated address lines. With the help of these address lines, your 80386 is able to address up to 4 GB of memory. But here those 32 address lines not appear straight away. Out of those 32 address lines, 30 address lines, that is A31 to A2, these are the upper 30 address lines of our address bus. I repeat, these address lines A31 to A2 we consider as upper 30 address lines of out of 32 address lines of your 80386. What about remaining 2 address lines? The remaining 2 address lines are, one is A1 and second one is A0. These 2 address lines are helpful for me for generation of 4 byte enabled signals. Because here important thing is, your processor can go and support 4 GB of memory. This 4 GB of memory can be organized like 4 memory banks. Just you remember friends, 8086. In case of 8086, it supports 1 MB of memory. In that 1 MB of memory, it can be organized into 2 memory banks. One is even bank and second one is odd bank. Each bank of size is equal to 512 bytes. If you go and use that, we have to go and use the data lines effectively. That is 8086 has 16 data lines. 8 data lines are connected to even bank. Another 8 lines are connected to odd bank. So by doing that banking mechanism, we are going to use data lines effectively, and we can go on to read or write our 16 bits at a time to or from data memory banks. The same concept here we are following. Our 80386 supports total memory of 4 GB and it has a total 32 data lines. This 4 GB of memory can be organized 4 memory banks like this. That is the first bank of size 1 GB. This is the second bank of size another 1 GB. Again another 1 GB. And this is last another 1 GB. So here important thing is each and every memory bank is connected to 8 data lines like this. 8 data lines are connected like this. In order to address a location in 1 GB of memory, just I need only 30 address lines. So in that case, I was using these 30 address lines. These 30 address lines are directly connected to each and every memory chip like this. Each and every memory chip like this, because to identify a location in 1 GB of memory, we need a 30-bit address. And now we have a 32 address lines. Those are shared by these 4 memory banks like this. In this case, here I may found a location 0. I may found location 1 here. I may found location 2 here. I may found location 3 here. And similarly 4 here, 5 here, 6 here, 7 here like this. If you go and arrange my memory as like this, it is possible to go and read at a time 4 bytes from 4 GB of memory by using a 32 address lines, or either I can go and read 24 bits at a time from this memory banks, or I can go and read 16 bits at a time from this memory bank, or I can go and read only 8 bits from this memory bank. So to enable these 4 memory banks, I need bank enabled signals or byte enabled signals. So these are 2 address lines A1 and A0. These are converted to 4 byte enabled signals or bank enabled signals. If these 2 signals are 0, 0, I am assuming that it is a BA0. Next it is a 0, 1, I am assuming that it is equivalent to BE1. If it is 1, 0, then it is a BE2, and it is 1, 1. You can assume this is B. Like this, the total 32 address lines of our 80386 can be organized like this. We may get a direct 30 address lines, a dedicated one, that is A31 to A2, but at least 2 significant address lines A1 and A0 may produce as 4 byte enabled signals or bank enabled signals. These are byte enabled signals we are applying to. These are 4 memory banks for enabling of these banks. So here I was used BE0, and here I was used BE1, and here I was used BE2, and similarly here I was used BE3. Like this, these are BE0 to BE3 are helpful for me to go and read an information from these 4 memory banks. So that's the concept here. So that I was mentioned here. Using these 4 enable signals, the CPU may transfer 1 byte or 2 bytes or 3 bytes or 4 bytes of our data simultaneously. That is possible because here we can go and use the data lines. Here I can connect a D0 to D7, here a D8 to D15, and here D23 to D16, and here D31 to D24. So by enabling of this, if I enable all, I can go and read 4 bytes at a time from this memory banks. If I go and enable 3 banks, then I can go and read 3 bytes from this. If I enable 2 banks, I can go and read 2 bytes from these banks. If I enable only 1 bank, I can go and read only 1 byte. Like this, my 32 address lines are helpful for me to address the locations of memory. And next, ADS. ADS hash. One thing you remember, friends, wherever you found this hash, that indicates that corresponding signal is active low signal. I repeat, friends, wherever you found a hash, so beside of your signal name, that particular signal is considered as active low signal. So that you have to remember. Next, coming to what this ADS means. ADS means address status. Address status. Generally, in case of 80386, we never found an address latch enabled signal A. So this ADS can do just like ALE signal. So that signal is act as an enabled signal for address latches to hold the addresses which are sent by our processor to the memory or an IO device through an address latches. So here the same job is done by ADS. That I was mentioned here. The address status output pin indicates that the address bus and bus cycle definition pins, that is address bus definition signals are nothing but W slash R hash, D slash C hash, N slash IO hash, B0 hash, and 2 B3 hash, like this, are carrying the respective valid signals. That means ADS signal is active. All these are different bus cycle definition signals. They are maintaining valid logic levels. So here W slash R hash, that indicates a read slash write signal, and D slash C hash, that is a data slash code signal, N slash IO, memory slash IO, and B0 hash 2, B3 hash, all these are byte enabled signals. So once this ADS signal is active, it indicates that these signals are maintaining valid logic levels. Once these are maintaining valid logic levels, then according to the logic levels which are present on these signals, the operation can be defined in our system itself. So that's the use of this. And coming to the next signal is a ready signal. Again, it is active low signal. Basically, this ready signal is used by to interface slowly operated I/O devices to a processor. Basically, this is what we can use. This is always used by slowly operated peripherals. Because we know that the processor can be operated at higher speed, but I/O devices, they are operated at different speeds, and their speeds no doubt is less than compared to processor speed. Whenever an I/O device want to communicating with the processor, then what they have to do is they took the help of this ready signal. Because your device's speed is less, but your processor speed is more. First of all, you have to go and synchronize the speeds of I/O device with the processor. After that one only the data can be transferred between an I/O device and a processor itself. In that particular occasion, the I/O devices took the help of a ready signal. If this ready signal is not active, it means your processor may identify logic 1 over this. This ready hash is equivalent to 1. That means your processor has to enter into wait state. That means your processor going to add some wait cycles to the bus operation. That means your processor is entering into wait state. Why the processor is entering into wait state? In order to reduce the speed of operation of processor, to go and match that speed with an I/O devices, this ready signal can be used by a slowly operated peripheral. Once the processor speed is equivalent to I/O device, again the same I/O device can change logic level of ready signal from 1 to 0. That indicates that some external device is ready to communicating with the CPU. Because that incident, the I/O device's speed is equivalent to a CPU speed. So this is a very important signal, friends. This is always used by slowly operated peripherals. That means if I want to interface the slowly operated peripherals with my CPU, then I took the help of this ready signal. And next, coming to VCC and VSS, and these are two signals are power supply signals, and VSS generally we consider as a ground. So I already told you at the beginning of this lecture, out of 132 signals of your 80386, the maximum signals are power supply signals. Why? Because if you go and refer your 8086, which is just only a 16-bit processor, in that you may found up 3 power supply signals. One is VCC and 2 are the grounds. There we clearly told you that why 8086 has a 2 ground signals. The reason for that is in order to reduce the speed of, once we have a more number of ground signals, automatically once the power is entering into your circuit, it reaches a ground as early as possible. So that is why we are maintaining a 2 ground signals there in 8086. Once the power is entering into your circuit, it reaches to the ground as early as possible. It influences the speed of operation also. So that we are using the same concept here. Out of 132 signals, the maximum signals are comes under the power supply signals. So that is about this. Next one is BS16 hash. This BS is nothing but bus size 16. So this particular signal is very helpful to us. Whenever if you want to connect an I/O devices, which can only transfer or receive a 16 bits. But your 80386 has a 32 data lines. In that occasion, I need not be going to use all 32 data lines for a data transaction between a processor and I/O. At the time, just only I need a 16 data lines. So in that case, I took the help of this control signal. By using of this, I can go and use only data lines that is from D15 to D0. These are 16 data lines are sufficient to communicating with the external device. So that time, this signal is helpful for me. And next one is hold signal. This signal comes under bus arbitration generally. This hold signal is used for DMA operation. Whenever a DMA controller wants a system bus from your 80386, simply what that DMA controller can do is, it will issue hold request. If it issues a hold request, that indicates that some master wants a system bus from me, that can be identified by the CPU. So that's what I mentioned here. The bus hold input pin enables the other bus masters to go and gain control of the system bus if it is asserted. That means whenever a device wants a system bus from our CPU, simply that a device, generally those devices are nothing but a DMA controllers, those are generated a request signal to the CPU to go and gain a control over the system bus. For that purpose, they are sending a hold request signals by using this hold signal. One thing here you have to remember, friends, your CPU go and give highest priority to hold request compared to any other interrupts the CPU can receive. So why? Because here this request can be generated by some other controller which are present in your system. So that it priority is more or less is equivalent to our CPU, so that your CPU can go and give highest priority to hold request compared to any other interrupts. Fine. And the next one is HLDA. HLDA means hold acknowledgement. So this is the signal can be generated by the processor. Once it accepts the hold request, at the time what it does is, it simply releases a control over the system bus. That at time our CPU go and generate this hold acknowledgement signal, HLDA. Once this HLDA signal can be received by the DMA controller, it knows that now the CPU release a control over the system bus. Now I have to go and take a control over the system bus. So straight away your DMA controller go and take a control over the system bus, and it will use that system bus for its operation. So this hold and HLDA signals are very, very important. And next one is busy hash. Basically this signal is related to coprocessor. Once you remember, friends, the silent features of 80386. 80386 has a one mathematical coprocessor whose IC number is 80387. This particular signal is related to it. Once this signal is active, what happens? The busy input signal indicated to the CPU that the coprocessor is busy with the allotted task. Basically, the signal is generated by a coprocessor. Once your processor receives this busy signal from coprocessor end, your CPU identifies that the coprocessor is busy with its assigned task. So that's the use of this. Next one is error hash. Again, it is an act to low signal. This signal also related to coprocessor. Once your CPU receives this error signal, that indicates that your coprocessor may identify the error condition in its execution. What are the instructions your coprocessor can go and execute? In that instruction execution, the coprocessor may identify any difficulty. That information it will send it to the processor with the help of this error signal. So that what I mentioned here. The error input pin indicates to the CPU that the coprocessor has encountered an error while executing its instructions. Basically, in order to reduce the burden on 80386, we are going to take the help of a coprocessor 80387, which is a mathematical coprocessor. Whenever your 80386 can execute user-defined program instructions, whenever it will identify some instructions are related to mathematics, it simply bypasses those instructions to our coprocessor 80387. Once your 80387 got execution of those instructions which are assigned by the CPU, it may identify any error that simply inform that information to processor with the help of this error hash signal. So this busy bar busy signal as well as error signal, both are at low signals because here there was hash. And it's coming to PREQ. This is signal also related to coprocessor. This is a coprocessor request signal. What this is? The processor extension request output signal indicates to CPU to fetch a data word for the coprocessor. That means your processor assigns some task to a coprocessor 80387. In execution of that instruction, it wants any data. For execution of it, what it does is it will send a request to a CPU. I want an information from a memory or from an IO device in order to execution of the instruction what is assigned to me. So that information your coprocessor given to your processor. So here you remember friends, your coprocessor can use 3 signals when it is communicating with our 80386. One is a busy signal, second one is error signal, and third one is PREQ signal. So these are 3 are the coprocessor related signals. The next one is INTR. Generally INTR means interrupt request signal. In 8086 also you may found this signal. It is a maskable interrupt. That means an IO device which may send an interrupt to your processor with the help of this INTR. That request may accepted or it may be rejected. That may have a chance for our processor. Because the interrupt which is received by your processor with the help of this INTR, which is a maskable interrupt. So this interrupt can be accepted or rejected. That is a purely depends on the IF flag which was present in the flag register. If you make IF is equal to 1, that means your processor is ready to receive the interrupts from an IO devices with the help of INTR. If the same interrupt flag IF equal to 0, your processor can't recognize the interrupts which are coming from an external devices through this INTR. So that this INTR we consider as maskable interrupt. It is a maskable interrupt. And the second one is NMI. Very hard. Right. So INTR is a maskable interrupt. Fine. And next one is NMI. NMI means non-maskable interrupt. So what is non-maskable interrupt? Once your CPU receives this non-maskable interrupt from an external world, then there is no choice for the processor to neglect this interrupt or it can't postpone the service for this interrupt. Once your processor receives any non-maskable interrupt, whatever the position of your processor is, it must accept this request and it will provide a service without any delay. Generally, this NMI interrupt we can consider as type 2 interrupt. So, generally NMI is considered as a type 2 interrupt. So, NMI, a valid request signal at the non-maskable interrupt request input pin internally generates a non-maskable interrupt of type 2. That's the meaning of this. This is a maskable interrupt, but it is non-maskable interrupt. What is the difference? In a maskable interrupt, the processor may postpone the service or it may neglect the service. But coming to non-maskable, there is no such type of chance for a processor. Once it receives a non-maskable interrupt, it must provide a service without any delay irrespective of the condition of processors. So these are two we consider as generally an interrupt related signals along with this reset. What a reset is? See friends, reset I write like this. The same thing I can rewritten as reinitialize. Reinitialize. That means this reset signal, once it is received by the processor from an external world, what it does, whatever the task it was executing that incident, it stop it at that point and it shift execution to initial address. That means once you switch on your processor, whatever the conditions you may identified in a processor, The same conditions one more time we are getting with the help of only this reset signal. That means our internal register are loaded with their initial values. Your program execution is shifted to the initial address, and the next one is the internal buses are operated at tri-state, and the devices which are connected to your processor also, those are also a reset. So this is that reset signal. Reset means reinitialize. That means whatever the task it was executing, that time it has to stop at that point and it shifted its execution to initial address. In that process, again one more time it initializes all internal register with their initial values or beginning values, and their internal buses are operated at a tri-state, that is a high impedance state, and your execution is start from beginning. So these are three signals generally we consider as interrupt signals of our 80386. Next, the data bus D31 to D0. Basically, the data lines are bidirectional lines. With the help of these data lines only, your processor either it will transfer a data to the memory or to an I/O devices, or it can go and read the data from either memory or from I/O devices. At a time 4 bytes. Or sometimes you can go and read 3 bytes, or sometimes you can go and read 2 bytes, or sometimes you can go and read only 1 byte. That is, it depends on the operation what is going on that time in your processor. So these are the 32 data lines. These are 32 data lines are connected to 4 memory banks. So for each bank we are connecting 80 data lines. Just now we can see that diagram also. Right. Next one is CLK2. This is a clock input signal. Basically, in case of 80386, the clocking condition is the same as 8086. That means in 8086 case also, there is no internal oscillator circuit for generation of clock. It always depends on external clock generator 8284. That 8284 clock generator generate a clock signal for 8086. Similarly, your 80386 didn't have onboard oscillator circuit for its clock signal. It again depends on an external device. The external device is nothing but a clock generator. The clock generator may generate a required clock signal for 80386 processor. We know that the operating clock frequencies of our 80386 minimum is a 16 MHz and maximum is a 33 MHz. So depends on the required frequency, the clock generator may generate a clock signal that can be received by our 80386 with the help of this clock 2 signal. And next one is a W/R hash. So this W represents a write and R represents a read. This is nothing but a control signal. By using this signal, your processor can't give the indication to the selected memory or with an I/O device which operation our processor going to perform on it. Either it will go and do a read operation. That means your processor go and read something from a selected device or from a selected memory location, or it will go and write something on a selected location or at selected devices. So which operation our processor going to perform, that is indicated by this. Once your processor make this W/R hash is equal to 0, no doubt the operation is read. That means your processor going to read something from a selected device or a location. And similarly, the same signal is equal to 1, our processor going to perform a write operation on the selected device or selected memory location. Fine. And the next signal is M/IO bar, or that is M/IO hash. Basically, this is a status signal. This is a control signal, but this is a status signal. What this signal indicates? This signal indicates which operation is going on in the system. That means your processor is going to communicating with memory or your processor is going to communicating with I/O devices. So that is indicated by the signal M/IO hash. So similar to previous case, M/IO hash is equal to 0. Processor is now communicating with I/O devices. If the same signal is equivalent to 1, then our processor is communicating with memory. So like this is a control signal and this is a status signal. And coming to the next signal is D/C hash. So that is a D represents data and C represents control or command. So with the help of this, the data transaction is going on a data range. That is related to data or that is related to code. That is decided by this signal D/C hash. Once this D/C hash is equal to 0, the information is going on a data lines is related to control or command. It is related to control or command. If the same signal logic level is 1, then the information is going on a bus that is related to data. So like this, the signal gives an indication to us. It is also comes under status. And next is N/C. This is nothing but no connection. That means some of the pins on your 80386, there is no dedicated function right now. For different version, they can assign different functionalities for those signals. As of now, wherever you found NC, that indicates no connection. So that's the meaning of this. No connection pins are expected to be left open while connecting the 80386 in the circuit itself. So we didn't want to connect anything to this NC signals. So I hope you can understand the pin configuration of 80386. So in this we discussed the different signals which are found in our 80386. So majority signals are related to power supply, and some of the signals also there is no connection signals also there. So apart from that, we may found address lines, data lines, some bus arbitration signals, interrupt related signals, bus control signals. All these things are exist. So I hope you understand the concept. In the next class, we'll go and discuss some other topic in this 80386. Thank you for patient listening. Thank you very much.